Hello and welcome once again to FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
And we are the FairTax Guys. And this is going to be the last new episode recorded before the end of the year. We're going to actually have a couple of best of here over the holiday season. The Jefferson episodes that we did earlier that people seem to like. We're going to replay those on the last 2 weeks of December. But so this will be the last one before the end of the year. And I guess we'll just do a FairTax year in review.
Maybe I should sing Auld Lang Syne. What do you think?
Maybe not.
Okay, maybe not. All right. Yeah, forget it. Yeah,
but again, right off the bat, though, let's first remind everyone how to get in touch with us, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com, and our Facebook page as well, the FairTax Guys on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. I'll be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed with the response that we've gotten as far as not too many people responding to us, but we have got some really good ones, some really good feedback, some good response. We're going to get to a couple of those here in just a moment.
Yep.
But let us encourage you, please, to interact with the program, especially in this new upcoming year, when tax reform is going to be such a huge issue, or one of the biggest issues in Congress this time. Something's going to get through, and whatever that something is probably going to be what we're stuck with for a good little while. So we mentioned on the last episode, we have got to start, agitating for the fair tax. We, the people, have got to let the Congress critters know we will not accept a small solution. We want the fair tax. We've got to get this done right now, and encourage you to join in the effort, especially in this upcoming year as the new Congress takes office here in January.
Bob is absolutely right to use the word agitating. That's what we got to do. We got to agitate the folks in Congress so that every time they turn around, they hear or see the fair tax. They have to be surrounded by it if we're going to get what we want, because, like I mentioned before, there's some big egos up there that we have to kind of get over. So how do you want to start the review?
Right. Well, let's review some of the better feedback that we have gotten over the course of the year, especially since April we went on Spreaker.
Yep.
And that kind of jump started the audience that were better than we were getting on YouTube and SoundCloud. Of course, we're still there. One of the beauties, you put this out on Spreaker, and they'll dump it out onto YouTube and SoundCloud for you as well. So if you're looking at us on those media, we're not going away. But Spreaker has kind of become the main platform through which FairTax Power Radio is distributed, and we could see a bit of an uptick in the feedback ever since we got to that. But I want you to read that thing from the guy from Canada. That was that's just too good not to share again.
Yeah, we got this. I don't know. I can't remember exactly when. A few months ago, maybe a year ago. I am 75 years old and handicapped. I live in retirement in Canada. As an American citizen, I must file a tax return even though no tax is owed. I used to be a tax preparer for both U.S. and Canadian taxpayers. I retired some years ago, and I try to keep up with the nightmare that only seems to get worse with the years. I am amused that the IRS sponsors let me rephrase that. I am amused that the IRS sponsors a program to eliminate paperwork. As a former school teacher, I would demote them to kindergarten.
So let's send it to the principal's office.
I don't think he cares too much for the IRS and their programs to reduce paperwork and some of the other programs that we've talked about on FairTax Power Radio.
The program of civil forfeiture is the one that I'd like to see go away, where they can just come in, literally seize a small business's bank account. Because, again, there is a law there that says, what is it, $10,000, transactions of $10,000 or more with your bank have to be reported to the IRS. That's trying to get these criminals and drug dealer types that deal in large amounts of cash. But if you've got a cash-only business and you make, several deposits a week that are under that amount, the IRS looks at that and says, aha, they're trying to skirt the law. We're going to come in and steal all of their money. And they do, and there's nothing to stop them. That needs to go away.
Yeah, and they don't accuse you of anything. You're not accused of anything. You have you cannot some of the things that are in the Bill of Rights, like trial by jury of your peers. Yeah, forget it. The IRS says nope, you're guilty. It doesn't make any difference. Unreasonable search and seizure out the window. Some of these things. So the IRS does this. And they do it because Congress has allowed them to do it. Congress has given them the authority to skirt or ignore the Bill of Rights. So that's,
Yeah, and we the people that allow that to continue to happen, I think we earned a trip to the principal's office or a demotion to kindergarten as well. That guy had it nailed.
Yeah. All right, here's another one. This is from a fellow by the name of Scott Monroe on Facebook. A thought occurred to me while listening to the latest FairTax Power Radio. You know how opponents like to demagogue the prebate as an entitlement? I have a new response to that. It absolutely is an entitlement program. You are entitled to provide the basic necessities for your family before being taxed by the government. You are entitled not to have the government be your highest priority of spending through forced withholding. And every legal resident gets the same entitlement. Think that will stop a few of those critics in their tracks, perhaps even beat them to their own game. So that's good feedback from Scott after listening to FairTax Power Radio. We truly appreciate it. And I think that's a great idea. Yeah, you can treat the prebate as an entitlement when you think about it, that you are entitled to keep your own money before you give it to, and feed your family before you feed the government.
Hey, man, what the prebate actually is a tax refund. Because the way this works is you will pay the fair tax every time that you buy something at retail level, new goods and services. The cost, the fair tax is embedded, included in the price. It's not added on afterwards like the state sales taxes most of us are used to dealing with. It doesn't take a $100 item and make it a $123 item. The fair tax is included in the price. That's why we call it an inclusive tax. But then that's it. It is collected from you on every purchase you make, but you don't actually owe any tax until your spending rises above the poverty level. Now, can you imagine the logistical nightmare of trying to figure out how much every person spends before you can start applying the tax to them? No. You talk about fraud and errors and stuff like that. That is awful. So you just simply collect it from everybody, even those that don't owe it, and you reimburse them, you rebate them back the amount of tax that's collected up to the spending of the poverty level. So that's all you need to know. You need to know how many people are in your household. You register for this prebate, and it's based on your household size. It's not based on how much you make. It's not based on how much you spend. Everybody, from a working poor family struggling to raise 2 kids on minimum wage, all the way up to Donald Trump and beyond, nobody should pay taxes on their basic necessities of life. Now, if Mr. Trump buys another helicopter or another jet airplane, he will pay lots of fair tax on that purchase if it's a new one.
That's right, if it's a new one. Yep.
But that's it. The prebate is just simply giving you back money that was collected from you that you do not owe. And they're going to collect it on $1 from everybody just to make it simple and anonymous and fair. But you give it back. That completely untaxes the poor, by the way. This friend of mine I was talking about last episode that was talking about Facebook and says the consumption tax is regressive. It hurts the poor. What really hurts the poor more than anything, or really high on the list of things that hurt the poor, are those payroll taxes for Social Security and Medicare. Those are regressive taxes that everybody pays. In fact, only the lower edges, the upper people who make their income through investment income or stuff like that don't work for a paycheck, they don't support Social Security and Medicare. It's the lower edge people that are working for wages that do that. Those taxes fall heavily on the working poor. The fair tax gets rid of those.
Yeah, with the fair tax, every time somebody makes a purchase of a new product or a service in this country, part of it goes to support Social Security and Medicare. It couldn't be more fair. It couldn't be more simple. So that's right. All right, let's continue here. We've got this email. This one's not too long ago. This is from Brian in Tennessee. Hey guys, I just started listening to your podcast a few weeks ago, and I have to say that it is great. Yeah, it really tends to tweak our ego a little bit. It is good to hear a discussion of the fair tax from people that really know it. Well, we'd like to think that. I have been a fair tax supporter since about 2000, and I will try to continually educate myself on the strengths of the fair tax as well as the arguments that people use against it. Your podcast is perfect to me to add to my studies. It will take me a little while to go through them all, but they are perfect since I have about a 30-minute commute to my office. Oh, it works out pretty darn good.
It works out really well.
Yeah. So anyway, the reason for my email is I wanted to pass along a recent article about my home state of Tennessee. We do not have an income tax other than a couple of small ancillary taxes. The state runs solely on revenue from a consumption tax, much like here in Florida and Texas and a number of other states. Okay. Well, as you could possibly guess, we have major surpluses. The debate in our state is is how we are going to spend this extra money. What a problem to have, huh? Not only that, but it is projected that we will continue to have an economic boom in our state. Just wanted to share this with you so that you could use it as an example if needed. Thanks again for doing what you're doing. We all really need to keep up the fight to get the FairTax passed. I truly believe it will usher in America's next era of unprecedented economic success. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I look forward to listening to.
Preach on, brother.
And then he gave a link that took you to a Forbes website, and it talked about how well Tennessee is going, and it gave credit to their consumption tax as the main reason that Tennessee is doing well. And we're having the same success here in Florida. We have a consumption tax, not an income tax.
Haven't we seen lots of information? If you look at the United States as a whole, all of the states as a whole, the states that are doing best economically are the ones that do not have the income tax. Income tax taxes your productivity. It taxes success. And, whatever you tax, you get less of.
Yeah.
So it's these states that have no income tax, like Texas and Tennessee and Florida, that are doing much, much better than your high-tax states like California, New York, and New Jersey.
Yeah. And in keeping with that, there was this graphic that I also got off of Facebook. It says, in the past 15 years, 9 states with no income tax gained $146 billion. I believe that's tax revenue. And the 9 states with the highest income tax lost $106 billion. Okay? That tells you, if people want to know, well, how do we know the fair tax is going to work? It's currently working in these 9 states. They're doing very well.
And that was part of the Founding Fathers' vision for the country, the way each state would kind of be, a little entity where different states can try different things, and we see what works best.
Yeah.
And we see really well, without no ambiguity at all, that the states with no income tax that finance themselves strictly with consumption taxes and probably some property taxes as well, but do not rely on the income tax, those states do better across the board.
Yep.
I mean, it's not like 1 or 2 are doing well and a couple of no income tax states are down in the bad list. No, all of the states that have no income tax are doing better economically than the ones that have these high income taxes. And I mean, that's the Founding Fathers experiment at work.
Yep. And my wife reminds me several times there's another way of looking at this too. Now, as I mentioned before, she and I moved here from New York about 20 years ago. In that time, New York has lost 2 congressional seats. Florida has gained 2 congressional seats.
Population leaving one place,
people
going someplace else.
People are voting with their feet.
Yeah. Well, we've already seen Rush Limbaugh left New York, citing the high taxation. Sean Hannity's about to do the same thing. Of course, Limbaugh came to South Florida, and I think Hannity's coming to Florida too. He says he'll do that when his kids are out. But, if you are a high achiever, the states that have these high income taxes are coming after you to get as much of your money as they can. And, Glenn Beck went to Texas. A lot of these folks are fleeing. And those are just 3 high-profile examples of people who are very successful at what they do. They are fleeing these high-tax states and coming to Texas, coming to Florida, where they can keep more of what they earn. I mean, even if you earn millions, it's still just human nature. You want to keep what you've worked for.
And this is to the tune of hundreds of people a day are doing this. Not just the notables like those folks on the radio and TV, but everyday folks like us. They are leaving the states with the high income tax, and they're coming to the states with no income tax.
Yeah, look how much business has been driven out of the state of California because of their high taxation there.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Okay,
and
let's continue.
They never really figured that out, why it's happening.
For us, it's pretty obvious. And I think for our listeners, when they stop and think about it, Yeah, that really makes sense. Why haven't we done this already?
Okay, now what did you have there in your hot little hand?
Oh, remember this guy who was going around Florida talking about the flaws of the FairTax?
Yeah, I thought he was going to give your wife a heart attack.
Yeah, we had the privilege
Our director, Mark Gupton, pretty mad too.
Oh my gosh. We had the privilege of listening to this guy for a couple of times now, a couple of different presentations of his. And, except for him being a lobbyist and the FairTax threatens his cushy retirement job, I'm not sure what he has against. But the thing is, he had a lot of stuff wrong about the FairTax. We're not going to go through all of this. But I love the one where it says, if the guy coming to cut your lawn collects the FairTax on what he charges you, but doesn't submit it to the government is going to come after you.
How in the world are they going to know who to come after? No, they're going to come after the guy who's supposed to be remitting the FairTax, but isn't.
Yeah. So that's one of the beauties of the FairTax. Instead of all the individual taxpayers, with the FairTax, they only have to, instead of like 120 million individual taxpayers, there's about 20 million vendors. And since it's collected by the state, all right, each state will collect the FairTax just like they're collecting their own sales tax right now. And these states, 45 of the 50 anyways, they already know how to do this. They've had people trying to evade them, and they stomp on them pretty hard. In a state, again, I'll use Florida as an example here. We don't have an income tax. We have a sales tax. And when you evade the sales tax here in Florida, they come down on you with a ton of bricks. You don't, so... this guy, he thought that this was going to be passable as one of the criticisms of the FairTax. And when you stop and think about it logically, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
That's some of the stuff that he was talking about.
As time is moving on here, Ron, if we're doing this year in review, a couple of things that just really turned over my giggle box as we were doing this show. There was some of the absolutely insane, crazy, outlandish stuff that's in the tax code.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember this one that you play golf.
Yeah.
And I'm a bowler. You're a golfer. I'm a bowler. And there was this proposal. I don't think it's gone through yet, but there was a proposal. Just shows you what the system, kind of engenders. That this is no fair. You were going to get a tax break for your stuff, but I wasn't going to get a tax break for my stuff.
There are people that want to count golf as exercise and make it deductible under the Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, well, bowling does the same thing. It's you upper ups that play golf and us rednecks that go to the bowling lane. So we can see who has the influence.
By the way, I haven't touched my clubs in months. We've been so busy.
I haven't picked up my bowling ball in a while either.
I still do enjoy the game, but yeah, it goes to show you how ludicrous it can be. What does bowling and golf have to do with the income tax? Come on, let's get real here.
See, you shouldn't get a break that I don't get.
Yeah,
and that does not happen under the FairTax. Everybody's treated the same. You golfers don't get breaks that us bowlers don't.
And what would happen, Bob, is if let's say that went through, and the golfers do get a tax deduction because of it's considered exercise, well, then the folks from bowling would be right there. Hey, you did this for the golfers.
Yeah,
you need to do it for us.
The precedent is set.
And the tennis players and the pickleball players and on and on. Where does it end? It ends with the FairTax. That's where it ends.
Absolutely. But you got a couple more of those really crazy stuff that's in the tax code that we just have to mention again in this year in review.
Yeah, remember this? Maximizing the look of your muscles. Yep, professional bodybuilders. They use special oils to prepare for competition. They want to deduct the cost of those oils. Yep, that's a good one. Remember this one? Depreciating breast implants. Uh-huh.
I can't say that I've ever gotten into that market.
A stripper known as... anyways, I'm not going to mention her name. I'm sure that's her stage name.
It's got to be a professional name. That's
was allowed to write off her breast implants because they are considered a stage prop. And so, here,
stage prop.
We did I think we did 2 episodes on some of these
something
really
like that.
outlandish and weird tax deductions. And remember, we found out also that the IRS denied some of them, but then they went to tax court, and the tax court said, oh, yeah, we'll allow that.
Oh.
So then you wonder how the tax code gets so large, because you've got the legislation, you've got the regulations written by the bureaucrats, you've got the instructions for how to comply with those regulations. Then you got court cases that change some of that all around.
I remember a starving artist deduction.
Starving
as well.
artist, yeah. Performing artists get a deduction for expenses they occur while employed under certain circumstances. And then, I have to read this because this gives you a great example of how crazy this thing is. They have to have at least 2 employers and receive at least $200 in income from each job. Job-related expenses are more than 10% of income of the performing artist job, and their adjusted gross income cannot exceed $16,000. So you've got all these caveats. If you do this, and you do this, and this month is this amount, and so forth, then you can deduct your artist supplies.
And how much do you want to bet that there will be people who don't meet those criteria that file for them anyway?
Yeah.
And then somebody from the IRS has to come out and audit it and make sure it's okay. Horribly inefficient, wildly expensive. There is a better way. Just pay your taxes at the cash register and be done with it.
Yep. So let's see. Orchestral orthodontics. Remember that one?
Oh, remind me.
Can an overbite be cured by the clarinet? The tax.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The tax man says yes. In the case of a girl with an overbite whose doctor recommended therapeutic clarinet lessons, the music lessons were deemed a medical expense by the IRS.
Learning to play the clarinet is a medical expense from the IRS if you've got an overbite.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, I bet they didn't have that back in the 40s when all the big bands were going along.
Yeah, and there's some more. Let's see.
Get one more. We're about out of time here.
Yeah. Burning down the house. If you donate your house to the local fire department to burn down for practice, you can deduct the loss. I never thought of doing that. I actually, whenever I moved from one house to another, I sold the old one.
Yeah, the insurance company really doesn't like it if you burn down the house intentionally. But the IRS doesn't care. Is that it?
Yeah, you can get in trouble. You can get a tax deduction, but you can get in trouble with the local fire ordinance.
This has been quite a year. And I'm hoping that this time next year we can come to our audience and say, we did it. The fair tax is passed.
Yeah.
We are done with the IRS. The income tax has been tossed on the scrap heap of history, but we've got to make it happen, and we've got to make it happen now. We mentioned this on the last episode, a new website that we're just talking about, set up by the Trump transition team, greatagain.gov, is soliciting input from we, the American people, on how to do that. And as of now, when we looked at it just before airtime here, it was just a tiny little link. You had to scroll down and see, share your ideas. Originally, it was a big red button, not hard to see at all.
Right.
But now it's a little link, but it still says share your ideas. That brings up a form where you can tell the transition team what you would like to see them do to make America great again. And there is nothing. Absolutely nothing. A more widespread, more impactful thing on the economy, on our entire way of life, than passing the fair tax. So let's get out there and tell those folks that we want the fair tax. We do not want to tinker around the edges and do the same thing we did back in the 80s and make it better for a while, then it devolves back into the mess we've got now. Yank it all out, replace the income tax with the fair tax, tell the Trump transition team that's what you want to see, and you can do that at greatagain.gov.
And, you're not whistling in the dark by sending them information about the fair tax, as we mentioned before. Mike Pence, the vice president-to-be, he was a fair tax co-sponsor for 10 of the 12 years that he was in Congress. He loves the fair tax. Mike Huckabee is an advisor to Mr. Trump. He ran on the FairTax when he ran for president. Marsha Blackburn, she is currently a congresswoman from Tennessee and a FairTax co-sponsor. She's on the Trump transition team. Stephen Moore is an economic advisor to Mr. Trump. I've seen him on YouTube, on various news shows. He is very knowledgeable about the FairTax also, and he always advocates for a consumption tax. And then I believe that Tom Price, and I can't remember, Tom Price has been nominated for one of the cabinet positions, but he was a FairTax co-sponsor also when he was in Congress. So there's really a lot of people surrounding Mr. Trump that are familiar with the FairTax. So you've got to add your voice.
Let's amplify those voices.
Yeah.
Yep. And see how and again,
how much time we got left here?
We got about 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
Got time about
4 minutes
to reminisce about the Frankenstein effect?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. The Frankenstein. We had one whole episode about the Frankenstein effect. And that is where Congress creates a law, and then when it adversely affects a popular segment of the population, they act like they don't know anything about it, and they come to the rescue. They created the monster. Then they want to come in, pretend they don't know anything about it, and they had nothing to do with it. Now, one of these was around the time of the Olympics, because we made it clear that not only, the Olympic athletes, when they win a bronze, silver, or gold, not only do they get the medal, but they get a financial stipend. Well, of course, they got to pay income tax on that. But not only that, they have to pay, for at least for the gold and silver, they have to pay income tax on the value of their medal. Believe it or not, that's how desperate the IRS seems to be. They want to tax these people on the value of the medal they win.
Until people realize we don't want to do our athletes that way. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't mean to do that.
Yeah. So you've got some people in Congress, the House or the Senate, and they hear about this, and they propose legislation. Well, they're the ones that voted for the legislation in the beginning, right?
So that's the arsonist that sets the house on fire so he can be a hero to come put it out.
Something like that. The Frankenstein effect. They create the monster, and then they want to be the hero by subduing the monster. Don't let them get away with that.
No. And don't let them get away with giving you a small solution for a big problem. That's why you need to go to bigsolution.org. Connect and support. And, of course, we need a little bit of the green stuff to help all this happen. And go for it.
Oh, let's see. We did some other things. We talked about fraud, like the IRS paid out about $6 billion in fraudulent refunds. There was the anti-FairTax candidate. Bob and I
a couple hundred refunds sent to the same address, and nobody really figured out that wasn't legit.
Like thousands of refunds sent to one address. How do you do that? Geez.
And then they say, well, maybe there's some fraud involved there.
Yeah. And they didn't catch it.
Yeah, but the fraud, the errors, the evasion that is just rampant in the system we've got now, it's going to bring it down. We need to get rid of it. So we need to replace the income tax with the fair tax. We need your help to make that happen. Yep.
We really need your help, and we can't emphasize that enough.
Oh, you didn't get to talk about your wife's webinar last time. You better do that this time.
Oh, yeah. In January, I believe it'll be the fourth Thursday. It's normally the fourth Thursday. Around the holidays here, they had to change it. But anyways, you go to fairtax.org/webinar. Fairtax.org/webinar. It's once a month. It's about an hour long. They do a quick presentation of the FairTax. Then they handle a special topic, and it's interactive. You can type in questions, and if you have something that you're not sure of, type in the question. They will answer it.
And again, we encourage your feedback to the program. TheFairTaxGuys@gmail.com is our email address. Again, we do have a Facebook presence. The FairTax Guys has a page on Facebook. We would love to hear from you through either or both of those means of feedback. And who knows, maybe this time next year we could be talking about something that you told us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, hopefully next year it'll be ancient history and it'll have passed.
Yes, we will have outlived our usefulness. We no longer needed FairTax Power Radio because FairTax is the law of the land. That would be what I would want Santa to bring me for
we got to
Christmas.
mention one thing
real quick.
FairTax Facebook Live, December 20th at 8 p.m. Facebook Live. Look for us on our Facebook page. We're going to do a live event. Facebook Live, December 20th, 8 p.m.
That's Eastern time. That's going to be fun. Okay,
That's Eastern time.
That's
Yes.
going to wrap it up for this edition of FairTax Power Radio. Thank you for listening. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
We are the FairTax Guys, reminding you that America's big solution. Aha, that is what the FairTax is, and once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
FairTax is coming. Don't send